Rapids podcast. It's a nice morning today, I guess afternoon. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. Oh, so good. I loved the confidence.
Yeah.
Started out very well.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, who are you?
Hey everyone. So I'm Saida or Betsaida. I would say, who are you? I'm a lot of things, but I would say here today, I would say really standing with my youth advocate hat that never comes off. And yeah, just excited to talk more about sort of some of my work with youth and what that looks like for me. And then whenever I'm not working with youth, I really enjoy just like engaging community events, seeing local art, roller skating for sure,
Woohoo.
or playing bass. So
I love
cool,
watching
AKA
you.
one of the coolest people we know.
You're so cool. I love watching you roller skate. I love your hair. I think you have great makut all the
Thank
time
you.
and your style.
All the time.
So I know you guys can't see, but picture the coolest person ever. Saida.
There she is.
But Saida is one of our coworkers at Urban Core Collective.
Mm-hmm.
You were on the education justice team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of the youth advocacy that you get to do, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just
Where do we wanna
jump
start?
in?
Yeah.
I guess maybe we could start there.
Or we can turn back the clock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to turn back the clock?
Let's turn back the clock.
Let's turn back the clock. Young Saida.
What radicalized you? Or like what made you want to get
Yeah.
involved with this work?
Definitely. So a little bit about myself. I come from two parents that I've come from two Mexican parents, and my mom immigrated here when she was a lot younger. My dad was born in California, but he still considers himself mostly raised in Mexico, and then
Okay.
he came back over here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say, like, you know, I think that with those different identities that I had growing up, my parents were mostly focused, or my family was mostly focused on survival, and there wasn't really that many topics discussing like politics, community, sort of like anything going on with our community. There,
Any like big picture stuff, really.
right? Yeah. And I really didn't even know about politics until I got to like middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like I would see it on the news, but I was just like, oh, this is just information that I should be looking at.
Yeah.
And so that was like interesting for me. But when I was in 6th grade, there was this guy who came into my classroom with Believe to Become. His name is Bruce Bowman, and he kind of introduced Believe to Become as a program, which back then, this was probably in like 2012,
What's the name of the program?
Believe to Become.
Okay.
And it was like this program focused, I believe, mostly in Grand Rapids, to kind of like provide students with an after-school program to grow into themselves,
Right.
explore their communities, and you got paid to write articles about different experiences.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
That's
like
easy.
That's cool.
I mean, it's not easy, but like that's an easy choice. to
right.
make.
I'm like, dude, like one paragraph for me talking about like this local ice cream truck, and you get like $20 for it. Like I was bawling, and so
I would have been writing my little hands
Cranking
up.
oh,
them
I
out.
was there.
Hell
I was
yeah.
the first one. And so from there, I got into a couple of other things. So I eventually, he kind of mentored me to go into more like community sort of oriented initiatives. And one of those things was actually writing a letter to the then mayor about the gentrification that was happening in our community.
Something light.
Yes, yeah, light work. And by the way, for context, I started off in Black Hills areas, but when I was like about in middle school, when I started middle school, I moved over to Hahn Eastern. So like again, super early, like
Very familiar with that intersection.
right?
Yeah,
Yes,
no kidding.
the 49507 area. And it was just, I didn't even know what gentrification was, but having to write like a letter about it was interesting. Learning why companies come into neighborhoods like my own without asking the neighbors. I'm like, wait, we get a say in what happens. And so
Right.
I think that's something that I learned was for someone that didn't always have like the words or like the knowledge to maybe address a certain subject, given the education around that, and also given like my mentor who believed in me and kind of guided me to write these different articles and like process these like deeper subjects, I
Yeah.
think encouraged me to be a little bit more involved. And it wasn't really what I was getting from like my home. It was getting, I think the big piece is I was getting this from my community, from people that really believed in me and believed in what I had to say.
During that learning journey, though,
Love
as
it.
you're learning about how things work and how the world works, like, did your family kind of comment on that at all?
Yeah.
Or are they just kind of like, interesting, but like didn't really like
you're oldest, right?
I am the
Okay.
oldest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
So
important.
you're making waves.
Well, I was like,
Yes.
well, it matters what you say.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm the oldest of 5, so it's myself, my sister, Natalie, who's actually at U of M now. I'm super proud of her. My little brother, who's in high school, my sister, who's in high school, and then my youngest sister, who is actually 5 years old. So I have like a
Yeah.
20-year
Oh my
age gap with them.
goodness. That
Yeah.
is huge.
It's a
Yeah.
vibe.
But they kind of like, to Nancy's question, like they got like on train with it, I guess. Like they jumped on board, or
I think like my family just kind of like parents definitely trusted me to kind of do these different initiatives, and they trusted me whenever I was like in leadership sort of positions to just like try the best that they could to support that. I think something that I particularly liked about my mentorship was that it wasn't just the programs I would do, but he actually supported my family. For example, when my mom was looking to get her residency, and helping us collect support and signatures for my mom's immigration.
What? You have to do that?
Yeah, and so yeah, it's like
I mean, that's wild that you have to do
Yes.
it, but it's awesome he did that. Wild that you have
right.
to.
And I
Yeah.
think like that familial, that's how I knew that I kind of wanted in my own way to show up for some youth in my community, for them to like know that they could challenge these existing structures. For me, I always thought the phrase like "that's how the world works" was kind of weird. It just didn't make any sense for me,
Yes.
because like who built it?
Who makes these rules?
Yeah. And so I think that was another thing, like me already personally having that like conviction where I thought that things could change. And that just like fueled by these people believing in me and my family, and like really extending those values and that sentiment of importance to me just made me realize that I knew that in the future I wanted to do something similar. But I also wanted to do it where I could encourage people to challenge these adult youth dynamics, because I
Right.
think there's still instilled those like, you talk to adults a certain way, you carry a certain sort of respect, sometimes even double standards, and
Yeah, they
You
treat
know.
respect as like a one-way street in some of the older
Yeah.
generations.
Like the because I said so kind of
Yeah.
vibe,
Yeah.
like as if people don't have feelings, like no matter what
Yeah.
age they are, they don't have like thoughts, or they're not creative or intelligent.
exactly.
It's super frustrating. Don't want to stop you. This is such a wholesome story. I'm loving listening to you talk about yourself, just because
Yeah.
I feel like it's so beautiful to like have that support, to have that like person took like something in their life and kind of helped you build who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
a true
know.
community.
Super cool. So keep going.
Thank you. I
girl.
mean, you all know me the way I'm now, which is a lot more extroverted. I love chatting with people, love getting to know different things going on. But back then, especially as the oldest of my family, kind of like going through these different programs and extracurriculars and all these challenges, I would say like I was a lot more shyer.
Yeah.
And so being in a space where as a collective, youth are encouraged to like chat with each other, to build those relationships, and you kind of know that everyone has, because you're from a similar neighborhood, I think you have this shared understanding that you're going through somewhat similar experiences.
Right.
Because I would say a majority of the students that were doing these programs were students of color.
Yeah.
And sometimes we had overlying identities that I think really brought us together, and to have the support while doing that, like I remember this mentor would also share GoFundMe's for other families, like
Oh, wow.
really
Wow.
So
provide
just like a real community,
yeah.
like advocate and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there was also somewhere like I saw that and I appreciated it, and I also knew like what is it like for me to also have more mentors that can resonate maybe with other parts of my identity,
Totally.
specifically women of color, queer women of color, like
Yeah.
where are even more mentors that can maybe help me understand different parts of myself that maybe like my mentor can't necessarily relate to, but
Yeah.
can try his best to do so. But
Like he can explain gentrification, but that might be
Right.
like the most that you can get out of that relationship. And that's
Yeah.
totally natural.
Right.
Something I also want to just note, it is so interesting, in like we don't really think of things like this until you have this outside scope, but like the fact that like you were living through seeing gentrification, but we don't have a term for it, right?
Yeah.
Like how you were just like, oh, I didn't really know what that meant. And like how, but it was like, once it's explained, it's like, oh yeah, we just know that our neighborhood's
Then, yeah,
changing.
it's easier
We
to
just-
have like a conversation about it.
it's totally easier. So just having that vocabulary, having the ability to name what your experience is, can be really powerful in changing it. Because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise it's just like, oh, this just happens to our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
not really
And it feels
a
very
thing
like
to
passive.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
I think
I
the
love
way
that.
that he also introduced these topics, it felt like it was a natural part of my life to speak up about these things versus I am being defiant or I'm speaking up. It felt like this is what I was supposed to do, and it's
Okay.
natural, and it's nothing like we should be expecting accountability from the different folks that are involved. And so I think I really appreciated that as well. It's like
Yeah.
being lended the tools, like you said, the words, and the resources in the community to then like talk about these things
Yes.
and unnormalize them from our experience. I think a lot of my high school, middle school was unnormalizing what I thought I was supposed to accept from like certain people or systems or even like jobs. And so
Girl, middle school and high school.
Wow, I
I
wish I was on
know.
that
Do you know what I was
page.
doing in middle school and high school?
something cool.
like, I gotta be an artist when I
definitely
grow
not
up.
that. I always go back to it. Like, I would not care about politics when I was a kid. I was your typical degenerate.
Yeah, but also
I feel like
like
that's valid.
I mean, I wasn't a degenerate. I was just a little nerd.
Ask
But
my mom about high school.
Well, I think back then, like, I received all these tools of knowledge, but I would say it wasn't really until after I graduated college where I actually started stepping into the power that I was able to see for myself.
Right.
And I think that
You
was a
can
journey of its own.
vote and things like that.
Yeah.
Probably feels a lot different than just talking about politics or democracy.
Definitely.
Very cool. Okay, so obviously then you're doing SALT now, which is largely tied to that influence, right? Like you
Yes.
want to be able to mirror that mentorship for other individuals.
Definitely. And even take it, I think, to a different level when it really taps into grassroots organizing. Because I would say a lot of my childhood was like advocacy work, like doing my own part. But to actually organize people collectively, that was like a learning curve for me.
Yeah.
And also like balancing that and existing structures that sometimes like not challenge, I would say, but like make you like I feel like I just really had to instill myself what grassroots organizing looked like for me and what people power looked like for me.
Yeah.
Especially when you have to navigate through like the respectability politics that happen,
always.
adultism, and you have to balance through a bunch of other like layers of it.
Nonprofit world.
Definitely.
It just adds an element.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's so cool, and I love that you said what organizing looks like to you, because when I was asked if I want to be an organizer, I'm like, yeah, but what does that mean? Like, I don't think that there are books you can read.
I was like, is this
right?
like administrative?
Yeah, but like, what do you mean organizer? Like, what exactly does that mean? And I do think that like there's a very like a broad term for it, but it varies between the individual. Is it grassroots? Is it grass tops? Is it something that is more advocacy, or is it like working on systems and things like that? They all contribute to the same thing, but it really looks different depending on what you're passionate about.
It looks and it feels really different.
Right.
I would say like when I was first grassroots organized, when I was first kind of into it, I definitely was like, it's people don't talk about how how to approach intergenerational sort of grassroots organizing.
Yeah.
Because at first I started off as a parent organizer in education justice, and I was having a hard time. I was like, I'm sorry, like I can empathize the most I can as like what I can
that's
understand as
true,
being
but
a
you're not a
parent, but I'm
parent.
not, and I just feel like there's like we still have the same end goals, but I think that someone, which is why I'm so grateful for our parent organizer Frederica's, because she really has this unique perspective and identity that I just like I couldn't really tap into.
You physically
and people felt
cannot
that and
have
saw
it.
that.
Oh, of course.
So,
also, you look young.
yeah. Oh my gosh,
You look way younger than you are.
People, whenever I go to high schools, they will think I'm one of the students. Try to get me like a write up or something.
Blending
That's
in.
funny.
They're like, you're not supposed to be out here doing this.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm literally a grown woman.
For the 2 youth retreats I've done, every single time like it's the second day of the retreat and they're like, oh wait, you're not a student, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you for that. They're like, I want to age like you, and I'm like, thanks.
But what a beautiful place to be, to know this is not my space. I'm better fit to just vibe
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, I've already talked to you a little bit about kind of how you got into UCC work, but we
Yeah.
did just skip a little bit over your college experience.
Mhm.
Like, I know you went to study political science, right?
Yes.
Okay. Like, what made you choose that of all things? Was it kind of coming from the background of
interesting.
organizing or like
Yeah.
advocacy? Or did it come more from like wanting to understand systems or both?
Yes. So my education in anything politics related was literally half a semester AP Gov course.
Okay, yeah.
So 3 branches of government, all these. That's it.
Yeah.
But you're not taught about the history of like Ella Baker, who was a significant person when it came to
Right.
organizing with youth. You don't talk about just like a lot of the history that really informs where we're at today and really defies like the way that progress can get made. I think people see only sometimes one path, like,
For sure.
but I was interested in learning more about not only like U.S. government, but like why is South America the way that it is right now? Like, what's
Yeah.
up with like
right.
Mexico? What's up with these like international relationships? I also wanted to know more about, because personally, growing up, I had never learned about Israel and Palestine,
Right.
and specifically, I'm trying to look for the word because it's not a conflict. It's right now it's a genocide, but like,
Right.
Before it was apartheid?
yeah.
I think, yeah.
And so that's so crazy to me that I never learned about these things.
And it's been going on for so long,
Yes.
right? So you're
So
like, wait, I'm
long.
just not hearing about this?
And so, yeah, I knew that I needed to educate myself, and I do that best personally through like classroom mode.
Okay.
In office hours, just asking my teacher like endless questions, and that's what I knew I wanted to do. It's like inform myself on what's going on, so then I'm able to make my own decisions on where I stand on certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, like, I wanted to enter a more like radical space, and I feel like college did to some extent because I did a lot of organizing with the La Casa, which is the Latine Student Association on campus at the University of Michigan.
That's dope.
Yes, they're so
super
dope, super resourceful. But we also fought a lot because my first year, actually, when I was in college, we have this thing called the Rock, and we had put like our like name on there, La Casa, and the next day it got defiled, and there was MAGA signs on it.
No
Yes.
way.
Course.
Yes,
Oh.
imagine like freshman you like in this college,
yeah.
and like that's the next thing that
That's kind
happens.
of terrifying.
And
It
you woke
is.
up radical.
Because then you're like, am I even
In that
safe in this
moment.
campus? You know? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
No, it
And
does. Those types of actions, they develop a reactionary, right? Like no matter what are you going to be happy about that? Are you going to love Trump supporters after that? Are you going to love, conservative individuals after that type of action? Like it does kind
Right.
of breed
Yeah,
this like
especially-
need to do something.
And especially because yours was just coming from a place of being like, hey, we're here, and not like F you and all your rights, like
Yeah.
it's like,
Of course.
I think being able to stand in your identity should be fine. And like the fact that somebody just took offense to that and was like, actually, no, like you don't get to be who you are here safely.
Women of color
Yeah.
are terrifying.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We are.
And so that was like my that was like my first experience, like really having also a community of like a diverse like Latina population as well. I think like before, well, actually no, I did have that Innovation Central. That is what I liked about it too.
The who?
Innovation Central when I was in high school.
Mhm.
But I would say it was like a different still at the same time when I was in college. But yeah, I mostly just wanted to study to educate myself, get to learn. And I was the first in my family to go to college. So I think if I could do it all over
That's
again,
dope.
Mhm.
I would definitely try to see how it works with like the economy. Economics is not my favorite thing, but
Okay.
I mean power.
It powers
and,
everything though.
Yes.
Yes.
Or like
some-
it's used as an excuse for a lot of policy and things too. But
And you still would have learned about democracy
Yeah.
and about politics if you learned economics.
Yeah.
you
Because
might
it's
have almost had a
completely
better
tied.
understanding of politics go through learning economics.
Definitely different scope.
Mhm.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, that's so dope. I'm loving this. So I think it's really interesting. I know that you like this sparked it, but like 18, you decided you wanted to go into like learning about politics and stuff. I think that's so interesting. I feel like those are the types of people who should be in those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I think some people, I mean, obviously it's great to like take a course and be like, oh no, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it's super cool that you knew like I'm going to make change. I want to make it this way. I want to learn everything I can about this. I want to unfold that. Like I think it just says a lot about your personality.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you're such a great organizer. Because it's not, you're not just going to be like, read the book and be like, okay, you're going to be like, read the book. And then you're going to ask all the questions about it. And I think a lot of organizing
Critical
is just
thinking.
critical thinking, dude, vetting your own thoughts and other people's thoughts and like not accepting things for what they currently are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So how did you hear about Urban Core Collective? How did you get into?
I mean, you were there before we were, so yeah. We didn't really see you on board, or
Yeah.
how'd you come on?
So I graduated in 2021, and I'm like, okay, cool. I have my political science degree from U of M. I'm gonna make so much money. Could not find a job for like a year.
You're like, this is it.
Year?
Yes, like I would.
That's
it's,
draining.
You know, I personally don't. Even with the U of M degree, which I think like regardless, you don't need a degree to like show for yourself, but still like
That shows.
even with a degree from U of M, like a lot of people be like, oh, you're smart, you're not gonna get the job though. And so I would say like you do get some privileges with the name of maybe having that first sort of introduction into a job, but it's nothing is guaranteed. Political science, like there were jobs in Chicago starting $35K.
Yeah,
It was,
whatever.
Yes. And it's like, how am I supposed to live like this?
Whatever.
And so
They know how much it costs to go to college. They know how
I
much
mean,
it
they
costs
act
to
like they don't.
live.
They know how much it costs to pay your rent. Like, come on.
Y'all
I'm like,
in Chicago.
You're in Chicago. Why did you
Yeah.
even post a salary right now?
I almost want to like. I wish you would apply for that job and just be like, for real. That's all it says is like, really.
The resume.
for all the years I put in.
Yes, that's what it felt like.
But you were having a hard time, obviously. I mean, a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, and I was actually burnt out from public service and community work, to be honest.
It happens.
I was just like, man, I don't know if I want to, because really, like, there is no end time. Like, you're thinking about these, like, I didn't get involved in politics because I'm like, I can, like, stop and chill. Like, I was feeling firsthand what it was like to go through classism, what it was like to go through funded public schooling, like, what it was like to have a culture in school where people tell you what to do and they don't necessarily give you the collaborative sense to create that school experience with other people, with other leaders.
Yeah.
And so that's all to say, like, for me, I was burnt out on public service because I'm like, man, is this, like, ever going to really change significantly? And so...
And you're coupled with lived experience.
Yes.
Right? Like, you're drained from living that experience, and then you're drained from trying to, like, address the problem itself.
I love the way you put that. Yeah. That's exactly what it felt like. But then after a while, I'm like, I just couldn't stop. Like, I tried doing a finance job and I got it after like 4 interviews. Okay. And then I quit after like 1 week because
Really?
well, yeah, I don't know, like I never signed like an NDA or anything, but basically I was gonna help process sort of these invoices and move some money because it was this marketing organization that was trying to compete against these other like affordable grocery chains. And so it was like Food Lion versus Aldi, like things like that. And I'm like, this feels so unethical. I cannot do this.
That's
and
dirty.
It was 45. It was not well paid.
Yeah.
For the type of hours they wanted. If I wanted to even like go to like a doctor's appointment, you would have to tell half of the office.
Of course.
You had to be on your computer from like 9 to 6 p.m.
Like
for that
moving
salary.
the mouse.
Yes. And it was just like the culture of the work was not what I was looking for. And I just feel like if I contributed to creating a monopoly over affordable food, like grocery chains, I just cannot live with myself if I contributed to that somehow. And like I do contribute to other systems without wanting to, but this felt like I do have somewhat of a choice to do it.
Yeah.
I can't even believe places like that exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's devious.
It's inner workings of a system, right?
Exactly.
Like we don't know that freaking Aldi is being chased out of pricing and things like that, or you know, I mean, I guess you can kind of assume or see it, but like to know that it comes down to literally someone trying to move some numbers.
Yeah.
Like
and like the amount of money
grimy.
that goes into like their marketing even
Mhm.
like but that's all to say I was just like I need to go back to like community and I need to go back into like creating these macro level changes, and
Yeah.
I got a taste of that when I actually interned for link up with this policy analyst Lionel Legrone.
That sounds fun.
And well, I would say like he was someone that definitely also supported me, and he was like the first, I would say, looking back, real internship where we didn't only just talk about the work we were doing, but the strategy, the
Okay,
networks,
yes.
like
Yeah.
how do you coordinate with folks? What does it mean like to have this policy approved by like a plethora of different folks that aren't always on the same page as you?
Yeah.
And we love a good mentor.
Yes. And so he did that. He connected me with like a lot of folks, and he just like allowed me to learn. And he was one of the first people who were like, oh, by the way, when we go to the office, we dress like this because we want people to approach us. And I'm over here like, let me go shopping for like a suit or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, you just show up, and people are a lot more receptive towards like talking to you. And it's like relationships that get built over time. And
yeah,
so
totally.
I knew I wanted to go back to that. Came across, just started talking to a lot of people. I was like, what can I do to get involved like in my community and make these changes? And then I actually came across Sergio
Yeah, right.
because he knew one of my previous mentors, and I was just like, what's around here that I could like do to actually feel like I'm doing something?
Yeah.
And then eventually I came across the ed team at Urban Core Collective, and they were looking for an education
Was
fellow.
it just Kyle and Erika back then?
Literally just Kyle.
Okay.
Oh wow, he was a team.
I mean, Erica was technically part of it too, but not officially until a couple months after.
Okay.
Yeah, she just maybe like been doing other organizing work within Urban Core Collective.
Actually, now that I'm recalling it, I'm not too sure.
Okay,
But-
we'll let her tell her own
Yeah.
story. Okay, cool. So then, you just got literally linked up.
I did.
No, I think that's cool. I mean, we're neighbors, right? It makes sense. We do very similar stuff, although not the same at all. Actually, our
There's
first
similar
event was
values, but yeah, just
our first event was at Link Up.
Was that the party for your mama?
Party
one?
for
That
your
was
mama.
So good.
Oh, and another thing we can kind of talk about. So, really, we work with you, right? You're a fellow organizer, but we also know that climate is something that you care about. So, I guess just like the general scope of maybe like why you care about it, or like what got you interested in organizing around climate as well.
yeah.
I've always been interested in it because again of like the neighborhood that I grew up in.
Oh, great.
And seeing kind of like the food deserts.
Yep.
I think there was like this TikTok, and it was like, this is how you, it was like these 5 components of like your neighborhood, and it's like a Metro PCS, a gas station,
Stop
a
calling me
local
out right
girl,
now.
literally our neighborhood, literally.
I live
what
on
else?
Franklin and Eastern, and literally there's a gas station and a Metro
Like,
PCS across the street.
A
There's
Chinese food spot by Great
a
Giant,
there's chicken,
um,
and there's a liquor store that they call a
Liquor
grocery
store,
store.
You gotta have a
Yes.
liquor store, and I feel like you also sometimes got like the Dollar Generals.
Oh, of course.
Yes, yes. And it's like, what's going on? Like, why do we not have any like green space? Why does it look so different here versus if I literally maybe bike a couple blocks over to East Grand Rapids?
Yes.
So drastically different. Like, and so not that should be the standard, but it's more like the investment that you see in your neighborhood is
Yeah.
not there.
Totally.
But really, what inspired me was my sister Natalie. Shout out to her.
oh, you love her so much. Keep
I
going.
do love her.
Keep going.
No, this is the second time you're like, I'm proud of her. You love it.
Yeah, that's really my child. But she did Plaster Creek Stewards, and I think
Okay.
she's so cool. She did their green team. She was telling me so casually about rain gardens,
Oh, yeah.
installing
I love
those.
a rain garden.
She like was identifying all these trees, all these plants.
What?
She was like telling me about techniques for planting, tickling the roots before you put it in.
Yeah.
She just had it all, and I was like, wait, this is really cool information. Why don't I know about this? And she tried getting us a rain garden, but like unfortunately due to the pipes we couldn't get it.
Okay.
But still,
yeah.
it was like, yeah, boo. It was still like cool though to see her doing that, and I kind of wanted to know like, I think for me it was like, why is like, for example, these two really huge companies making decisions for like how much we pay and like how our energy runs in our home, and why is it so
Right.
expensive to live where we can't really like adjust to the weather,
Yeah.
or have the resources to help us adjust to like really cold weather, really hot weather.
Yeah, it's very like cost prohibitive.
Yes.
Huge part of the reason why we pay the energy rates we
Yes.
do, because we don't know how to take care of it.
Yeah, and I think I just felt like I learned a little bit about it in college, but kind of seeing them too. And then my sister Karina got involved with Friends of GR Parks and joined their green team, and just seeing her bike around, literally water trees. I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And then that's a little bit how I met Robert Cloy too, was like he was their mentor then, and that seemed really cool.
Okay.
And then I just got interested in learning. So I joined C4, the Community Collaboration Climate Change, as an ambassador.
Right.
And what was cool about that is like it really connects you with like different networks, but also as an ambassador you get grant money to produce like a hyper local project.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to me.
Do you want to talk about your project?
Of course.
Yeah, please.
So I'm like I mentioned before, I'm Latina, and I also am bilingual, and for me, I wanted to engage my community more. Like my dad used to be into environmental justice slash like he was really into like wind, what do you call them?
Oh, the wind turbines?
The wind turbines. Like he was, and I'm like, okay, like let me explore this a little bit more. Not that specifically,
No, but
but
it's
like
so cool.
I know, and I love that he was interested in that. So for my project, I partnered up with the Granville Avenue Arts and Humanities, and they serve like the Black Hills neighborhood kind of area, predominantly like Latine folks, bilingual folks as well. And I decided to see like what are students interested in learning, what would I like to share with them, and like what could that look like for the both of us. Not just like, this is what I think is important, please learn it, but really like what's a collaboration. And so they asked for students. I kind of offered a couple things, and we landed on doing this 4-week project where we kind of talked about introduction to like native plants, kind of their purpose, invasive species. We had Gabby from Friends of GR Parks actually come in and talk a little bit about her like career as an arborist, and talk about oak trees, and talk about like being an arborist in both Spanish and English. And that gave me the tools, because yes, my jargon when it comes to like certain environmental terms is not there, so it was cool like learning from her.
Of course.
And so that, and then the end thing is for us to create a zine. So there's a lot of people have asked me, what's a zine? But it's like essentially this kind of like smaller version of a magazine.
DIY'd.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
they're really cool. You can make it personal. I think that's the best part. It's like your own point of view. Like if this matters to you so much, you just talk about it. You add visuals. You publish it yourself, and it's really accessible. You can replicate it. And you can share it. So,
and it doesn't have to be done all the time. It's not like you
No.
like a thing somebody would subscribe to. So it gives you an
Right.
option of still getting a word out without having like a published huge thing.
yeah, and it's just accessible. And so the end goal of these 4 weeks is for students to create a zine about their experience and what they learned, and ideally a zine that they could share with their family.
Oh, that's a nice
very
way to like
cool.
frame the conversation too, because it's
Yeah.
like I do have different ways of talking about climate change and climate justice depending on who the audience is, I guess. Like my conversations with you look very different than my conversations with my dad. For example.
Oh,
do they?
My dad's like squared too, and I'm like, oh, come on, Dad. Catch up.
No, that's such a good point. You know, I think in organizing, it's something I'm learning a lot is like, one, sometimes you can't have the same conversation. We got a code switch, but also sometimes I'm not the right person to have the conversation,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm going into like rural and conservative communities, talking to them about renewable energy. I would rather just host and let somebody else facilitate that conversation because people look at me and there's parts of my identity and there's parts of the language I want to use that are just not going to resonate with people. And so I think it's really important to be able to tell your story and to tell it to people in a specific way or in a way that like they can process things.
Yeah.
And also in a language they can read.
Yeah, and I think the best part is like, how are you not gonna want to read something your child made? Like,
Oh, totally.
so that advantage of like them having the relational connection to the person they're gonna share it with.
Yes.
And I'm so stoked to take a copy of those zines and show it to like other folks too.
Oh.
And I think I told them at first I was like, you know, we each get a page, we make a zine collectively, we share it. But kind of as we entered the zine phase, I was just like, you know, what if someone wants to make a zine about a native plant who like joins a band or something? I don't know. Like, why not let it be kind of creative while people are still learning, but a story that makes sense to them that they would like to share.
Yeah.
So we have 2 more weeks left. Oh, and actually for the last...
Wait, it's still going?
Oh, yes, it is. Actually, we have 1 more week left. It's next week. Is our last week.
When?
And,
where?
It's at GA. I don't know if it's not publicly open, but if y'all would like to come in, I'm sure students would love to meet you both because y'all are super dope.
Yeah, and by the time this is published, people won't be able to probably make it anyways, but.
Yeah, and so it's at GA. It'll be next week, Wednesday. And next week, we're actually be having Natalie come in as a guest speaker.
Nice.
Because she actually told me that she wanted to end up doing like environmental engineering to open up her own nonprofit in the future and kind of connect community more with like actual green solutions to maybe different issues.
That's so cool.
I know.
Little sister, dude.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
My little sister ain't shit. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. She's great. No, I think that's super cool. I love how driven you guys are. That must come from the way that you grew up.
Yeah, a little.
I would stay hustling.
Yeah, my mom. It's literally my mom. My dad too, but like. That mom.
Shout out. No, really though. I mean, I think that's beautiful. You know, I think it's one thing for people to decide to go to school and to know what they want to do, but it's a whole other thing to have your kids be like, I know this is what I want to do. I'm passionate about this. I want to learn.
And I think something that you notice in these spaces across with youth, it's like the need to really instill like self-determination, like your own sort of autonomy over the world and what's going on around you. Like, it shouldn't feel like climate change is just happening to you. Like, you should have a say in what your future's going to look like, especially when, like, we're nearing 2030, where we're supposed to have some pretty catastrophic, like, even now we're seeing it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not going to be, like, night and day. Like, we're definitely incrementally getting closer to those things, right? So, yep.
And I don't think I talked about it, but SALT, we mentioned the word a couple times. But SALT is a student association for leadership and transformation. We're actually looking for more students from Union High School, Ottawa High School, Southwest High School, UPrep, and Innovation Central. So we're trying to get some more student reps from there if y'all know anyone. But a brief interview. Yes, please. But a brief intro is that's a group for students by students to make real changes in their schools, whether it's changing the school food lunches, culture, the structure, the way that schools feels. Because for a lot of students, sometimes these schools end up being a space of oppression in the sense where you're being told what to do, or you get these surveys and you feel like nothing comes from it, or sometimes you don't even know what the survey is about.
Or they give you jail food. Literally, you're like, I don't want this. This is not good for me.
Yeah. But also, there isn't any true power that's given to students, say. Like, you have these advisory boards, but sometimes they don't really hone in. And I'll have students that are part of those advisory boards that tell me directly, I said this months ago and I haven't heard a single thing. And why are students experiencing this sense of powerlessness in their schools instead of being encouraged to... Because I think about, like, after I graduated from high school and after I graduated from college, there's just, like, it's so fundamentally important to be able to speak up for yourself and not only, like, point out the problem, but be encouraged to have... reimagine what the solution could look like in ways that we're not always taught. And I think that there's also an opportunity for students to connect with each other and build these. And sometimes I think school can feel, and just like as a whole, people can feel like they're being pushed into being very just like individual folks instead of a collective community. So with SALT, it's super dope because I work with some of the most amazing students that just have ideas, have issues, have experiences, have a voice of what they want to say. And we provide a space for them to do it. But I also, one thing to clarify is it's not like me, program director, with like students. It's me in my role, in my capacity, providing the tools, the education. Okay, how can we do this together?
Right.
And for them to kind of lead this together.
Yeah.
And it's hosted in Urban Core Collective, but really I think the goal is for it to work as a student union for a in a long-term sort of manner.
Yeah.
That's great. You're building organizers.
Yeah.
You're building not kids, but you're building kids, youth, into people who are ready to speak up for themselves when they're out of a school board setting and into electing people or talking to their commissioners or, you know, holding that accountability.
And even just like in their personal lives, I could imagine it being easier for them to like establish their own boundaries or like be like, hey, I actually don't like it when you talk to me that way. Like, you know, like I feel like it just builds like a self-confidence too. Because I sure as heck did not have that when I was a teen.
I mean, honestly, I did not have that.
I was trying to tell people, you know, but it's just having language structure around
experiences that pushed you into that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have that until like after I started honestly my organizer position. I would thought it was like tough AF. And then I had to tell people to come onto an event, and I was like, "Could you please?" Like no. It's definitely a lot of experience building, but these are things that students already want to do. They're just lacking a space that truly honors them and that really allows them to organize, like supports their organizing. A lot of these students have done individual acts of like advocacy, speaking up for themselves.
Yeah, right.
But like if I'm able to support like the community aspect of it with the tools and like for y'all to stay connected, like I'm really honestly a dream come true. Like this is the main reason why I went to college was to do something like this, and I'm definitely so grateful to like have them and get to know them and learn from them and build it out with them. So it's a lot of me going back and forth, like how are we changing it for next? We're going to be having a fall retreat where we're going to be planning some things together as well. So yeah, just super stoked. And yeah, Nancy, you were actually there during one of our and we're talking about students were talking about raising teacher staff in solidarity with teacher pay.
Yeah, and the teachers unions were there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but really it was also like, I would say to summarize the event, it was teachers' working conditions or students' learning conditions, students organized in solidarity with teacher pay. But what did you think?
I thought it was really cool. I mean, I like the fact that it was like, it did feel like this really well thought out or like planned out collaboration. I like that, like, yes, it was students. And like, I feel like sometimes employers kind of are just like, oh, like they just want more money. But hearing not just the teachers be like, hey, you're not paying us living wages, but the students also being like, hey, because you're not paying my teacher a living wage, this impacts their performance as an instructor or maybe their capacity to stay on as an instructor.
Right.
Of course.
And that like impacts their learning experience. Like not to mention the fact that's like I learned that so many of the jobs were being outsourced. I thought that was trash. Dude, I didn't realize how many students just didn't have teachers.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like for a school system, it's a shame that they can't provide that bare minimum amount of classroom education quality, you know?
Yeah, well, I think it opens up also the bigger conversation of like who is like when do students get a say in their education? And it isn't only when they have to take the SATs or PSATs or like the maps. But it should be like what are the structures in place to really hone in on student voice and make decisions?
Like what are like the quote unquote proper channels?
Exactly. And it has to be more than school board meetings.
It has to be more than school board meetings. And also, does it really take a teenager telling you, if you don't pay our teachers better, we don't get a good education? Does it like, is that really something that has to come out of a kid's face in order for them to know that that's the reality? Like we know that. We know if you're not paid well, you can't do your job well. Like this is even like people who maintain the most dangerous things around the world. Like you got to pay them well.
Yeah.
They need to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They need to be highly skilled. They need to be healthy. They need to be like present and there. And like, this isn't just another job. This is the future of thousands of kids in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, about 14,000 kids.
It's too big of a job to mess up like that.
Way too big of a job to mess up like that. And so I love that they're like, look, this is our future. Pay these people while they deserve it. But also like, hey, I need a good education. But it's like the fact that we have to do those things frustrate me so much.
Yeah. I'm glad that they're doing it though.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Like, I
It's
wish they didn't
beautiful
have to.
see.
But I think that their strategy and like the words that they use when they're actually addressing the board, like they're just very concise and informative, and like you know, you could tell that like they know what the issue is and they understand the issue at a way deeper level than I ever understood. School politics when I was a kid.
You're gonna be someone's mentor. Like you're gonna be.
You are someone's mentor.
You're gonna be when someone's sitting in a room doing a podcast or having an interview. They're gonna be like, Saida was a huge part of getting me to where I am. They're going to talk about SALT. They're going to talk about the things they learned. Excuse me. They're going to talk about somebody being like, you have a voice. This is how you utilize it properly. And they're going to become great organizers because of you.
Yeah, because we're the elders of the future.
Yeah, no, that would mean so much to me. And I definitely see them like, yeah, I definitely appreciate them and what they do, and for trusting in me too. Like, you know, they go out of their way every Fridays where they could be spending their time doing other things, and instead they spend it really investing in themselves, but also investing in their community and bringing forward their visions for what they would like to see. And I really appreciate that. And they're learning a lot of things. I mean, they're learning how to do media liaisons when they're at these events. Like, they are on, what do you call that? When you like cross your T's and dot your I's. Like that was them at the event.
That means on your shit.
Yes, literally.
That's what that means.
And yeah, like they put in so many hours of work, and you know, they're always like growing and changing. And it's crazy because in 2022 when they started, this was like 10 students that went to talk about school lunches and how they were not nutritious or appetizing. They were not culturally responsive.
Right.
And at first it's like, okay, we got momentum. We have these 10 students. I want to keep speaking up. They like going to the school board meeting. They love pulling ideas and building this community. But what do we do? And so that called for structure. Like, okay, let's actually build out sort of this organizer experience for youth to have. And just to be clear, it's open for any youth. Like, our focus is primarily in organizing Grand Rapids public schools, and at the state level sort of changes. But we have students who have come from private schools, charter schools, other public schools around the area, because these are skills that can be implemented anywhere you go in life.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. They're set up to, at the very least, utilize their voice and know how to do that. Doesn't always mean it's going to make huge changes, but it's very fulfilling to your soul to be like, this is wrong. People need better. I deserve more. You know, it's never going to not serve them well. Oh.
Yeah. A lot of unnormalizing your experience and pushing towards reimagined solutions that aren't just like the ones we've like seen in the past and that don't necessarily work anymore.
Yeah, because those tend to come, like, I feel like a lot of like solutions that come from the top down tend to just be very like prescriptive or like very like just very dictated, but they're not collaborative and they're not oftentimes meeting the needs that are there. So I'm really glad that your kids are kind of like pushing from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that advice is given from people who could like afford a house. Back in the day, they made livable wages, but we're not there anymore. Okay.
Let's say that we're not there yet.
Right. We're climbing there, right? And it's
there.
things like standing up for yourself, like learning how to go. I mean, a teacher's union. That is exactly how we're all going to be able to get there. You know, something I've really learned after watching the hot union summer or the hot labor summer we had last year.
Heck yeah.
Was when they win, we all win.
Yeah.
When people at UPS start getting paid near $50 an hour, more people are going to start getting those wages. They're going to start demanding those wages. They're going to start saying, no, I'm going to go work for UPS. I'm not just going to stay here and work for this company. I want those benefits that they have. I want that security. The more people who say that that's the standard they want, like they have to start folding toward that.
Right.
And unions are the quickest way for people to get there. You know, you have that backing, you have that support.
Yeah.
Dude,
It's all
Sean
for
Fain
one.
for president. I love that man. Oh, I cannot believe I just said that.
Man, I think what would be
have
so
a crush on him.
interesting is to learn also.
No, it's like oh my god,
Like a
what are
professional
you're out
crush.
Professional crush,
Yes.
totally.
Word crush. I think it would be so cool is also to learn about the history of unions in Grand Rapids and why we are the way we are now. Because I think that right now it's not the same landscape of what it was when there was the furniture workers strike that happened a while, like, I forgot which date it was, but it was like in the history of GR.
Yeah.
But I think that would be interesting to also get to learn is like the history, local history, which I think is not super discussed.
Not a whole lot.
That could also potentially, just a thought that came through, like maybe that could be a large example you use for your student organizing, right? Like this happened right here. This is how they did it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was kind of violent. So you might have to like, you know, be kind of transparent about the way things go, but like in a way, like you can learn from their experience. It doesn't have to be violent, but like what kind of organizing did they use? You know, what went wrong? What went right? Like what were their tactics? And also like just seeing something mirrored in your neighborhood. Just it feels a lot different.
Yeah. So I guess what are some challenges that you face or that you feel like the movement, whether that's like climate or like with your students, like what are some of the biggest challenges that you think you guys are facing, or what are some highlights?
Yeah, I guess I could do a little bit of both. Highlight was seeing SALT start from a group of 10 to 8 passionate students and grow into, now we have about 40 members and 25 very active members.
That's huge.
That's amazing. But I think along with that, it's like you have to start making these collective decisions, and it's holding space to have these productive conversations that people might approach differently or have different ideas of how something could be addressed. And so, for example, like when we're doing a campaign, you have to think about your tone. We have to think about what is the way we're moving collective. If one of us gets pulled aside by a decision maker and this decision maker tries to work with you individually, what does that look like for us as a collective? But also, like, sometimes when you're organizing, I think especially with other folks, it's a lot of times I think sometimes the questions get propped to you, like, do you think this is going to work? You know, or is what we're doing really matter? Does it really matter? And I think that's really when you have to answer that question as a collective, because I'm not the leader of SALT. Like, I'm just there to support, and I'm just another organizer with these youth. So I think it's just having those conversations and being real with each other and what happens and what the consequences are for each thing that we do. So for the staff one, we collectively decided to do the chant, to walk over.
Yeah.
We collectively decided to stay until like the end of our action. But it's like, what happens if someone gets outed or things like that? So it's just like really pushing the fact that, yes, you all are growing as individuals and getting to know more about yourself, but as a collective, how are we approaching these different issues? What's our strategy? What's our tone? What do we stand for? Things like that.
Girl, I need you literally on my shoulder all the time. No, because something I've been saying lately is like, we got to sing the same song. We have to ring the same bell. You know, I think it gets confusing when you talk to a student organizer who's doing work and one person says one thing and another person says another. And they're like, so what's your message? What is the point you're trying to get across?
Right.
But I think something we could really utilize in the climate justice community and environmental justice.
Many goddamn bells.
There's so many damn bells, and everyone friggin', it's like a different tone for every bell that you're ringing. And so it's like, you know, even if Nancy and I are talking about the same
harmonize
thing,
all these different
girl, let's harmonize. Like if you and I are talking about the same thing, but we like use a different verbiage, or like we come at it from a different angle, like it doesn't hit the same as if like you asked every single person who was working in specific advocacy work, what is the solution? And they all said around the same thing. I mean, obviously, like they're multifaceted, right? Both the problems and the solutions, but like just we got to get on the same page. It is so powerful to hear every person say, this is what we want. We know what we want and we know how to get it.
Yeah.
So
and it's taken time.
Mic drop.
Well, of course. Well, I would love to mic drop, but we're all like picking different mics up. But no, it does. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of skill and you have just
emotional
consistency.
Intelligence.
Totally.
Everything.
Kudos.
Yeah.
You're doing that.
Seriously. So that's a huge solution to highlight. And I definitely think we know some of the challenges that we're facing, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, we named them off the top: gentrification,
Mm-hmm.
lack of voices, or lack of the ability to utilize your voice, you know, or even just like the understanding of like the fact that we think that like there's 3 branches of government and that's it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, stuff like that. So I think just a huge promising solution would be to continue to build organizers, build them as young as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you have to also define, like, what does this work mean to you? And so this work isn't just about, let me change my community, like, let me bring better school lunches. It's really like, what are the implications of you, like, organizing your community right now?
Yeah.
And I think what is something that keeps you going in this work, because it's hard. And I think sometimes when people ask me, like, is this going to work, it's because we're, like, tired and we want it to change already. But, like, is this
We're
going to
in for
work?
the long game.
Yeah, that's a question for all of us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just, like, a lot of learning. And also I think something for me that was, for me and, like, some youth, it's, like, really experiencing what a union is, what an association is, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because, like, I think everyone had the same aligned goals. They were like, again, it was like all bells ringing. Maybe they were harmonizing at this point, but like they all had an idea of what they wanted, which is more student voice, more student power in their schools. And this looked through these like experiences that they were having, like, why does our food suck? Why is like transportation not reliable? Things like that. Why can't I have more more support in my school? Things like that. But once we really got on the same page of like understanding what a union looked like and what that could look like for youth, I think through a lot of us being on the same page has been through experiences, through the conversations, and me bringing them and being like, okay, we're gonna have this meeting with this union rep. Like, who are the students that are gonna be there? What are the questions you're gonna ask? How do you prepare for this meeting so you also know what's going on? What do you need from me? And that takes so many hours. Like, these students are putting in work. Like, it's not just like Fridays we meet, it's like during the week. It's like answering these questions. It's like having one-on-ones, getting to know each other. Yeah, building those relationships. Like, it's not just about the work, it's about you, your mental health, what's going on in your life, things like that.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Girl, that is beautiful. Straight up. That's all. So we usually do a call to action.
Their grand finale.
Yep. That was me trying to
drum roll.
Drum roll. It was really bad. I swear I can roll my R's better, guys. I know you both speak Spanish, so that was embarrassing.
Oh, that's like literally my weakness.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Okay. Oh, perfect. That made me feel so
twins.
Included. Twins.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Nancy's like, this is disgusting. Yeah. Do you have a call to action? Is there something that you feel is, you know, something that people could do to get involved? Is there a climate solution that you really want to highlight? Is there organizing solution?
Or just invitation to join something that's already going.
Yeah, I would say in terms of specific work with like SALT, if you're a teacher, bring us into your classroom. Like, we'd love to talk with other students about the work we've done, and why not teach your students a valuable life lesson about speaking up, advocacy, but also the work behind that. Like, it's not just this is what we want. It's like
this is why we have these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
also,
it's just
they're advocating for your salaries.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, really, I think sometimes there's like a tension where it's like sometimes folks, it feels like you can't hold certain structures accountable without still wanting them to thrive. And I think that's something that SALT's really passionate about. Like, we're putting our time because we want our district to do better. We want them to be healthy and healing. Like, so that's all to say, like, if you're, if you know any students from UPrep, from Innovation Central, Ottawa, Union, Southwest, just would love to have more students. And you might be like, why those students? It's because we have quite a few students from other schools, but these are the schools we'd like to see more student
But
reps.
if there are students in the school that you didn't mention, like, they're still welcome to join.
Yes, you're more than welcome. We have our Instagram, so it's SALT.studentpower, and you can just see all updates about our work on there. We have our application in the bio. Or if you search up Urban Core Collective, Education Justice Team, we have a link tree with all our resources. In terms of like the call to action for like climate, just if there's any youth interested in any sort of like climate change or climate justice, like feel free to reach out to me, and I love to connect you with some other folks that I may know and really like support that sort of passion you might have. But also if you're just someone who's younger that would like to talk more about community organizing, or about what I do, like feel free to reach out to me, to my email.
How can they reach you? What's your email?
My email, I'll put my personal email because we talked about a few things, but it's B as in boy, V as in Victor, A-L, D as in dog, I, V as in Victor, I, and then at umich.edu. Like B and V sound really confusing to people.
Dude,
so
I love it.
Yes.
Okay.
See, I was a receptionist for 8 years, and you doing that just warmed my
I could see
heart.
like the flashback happening.
Oh, girl. I was a receptionist. That's for another time. No, it's why I can talk to people, though. It's why I can talk to literally anybody. I'll answer a phone. Oh, you guys ever hear like a phone ringing at a restaurant and you're like, I got it. Don't worry about it.
Leaves table and goes pick up the phone.
Literally.
I did that once after I quit the library, and like I was back and I was hanging out with them. I like went to go see somebody at the library or whatever, and then I think they had to step to the back room and their phone rang. So I was like, "Hey, this is Nancy at blah blah library. Like, how can I help you?" And was able to like just like take down a note and be like, "All right, cool." Like,
nice.
That's what's stored in her brain.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
This has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wish I knew more about you before today, but I really enjoyed learning all that I did. You gained 20 cool points. I don't know how.
Thank you.
You were already literally pouring over. So
thanks. And also, I just want to really share my gratitude for this space because I think you both came into this climate justice space and you made it feel so cool and so
that's the goal.
accessible and like fun and intriguing. Like hearing about like the climate cafe, like Party for Your Mama, like what the heck? Like the way you engage people from like printmaking to like capturing their like climate experiences, audio or visual. Like it just feels like everyone can be involved in some sort of way. And
everybody's welcome.
Yes, and I just love that you both are able to do that. And even this podcast, I was like, oh wait, I totally forgot people could do this. And like, I'm so used to like brain rot podcasts that actually that's not true because I do listen to NPR Life Kit.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But I do love NPR.
But thank you both so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Shout out to the Green Podcast. Green Rapids.
Really, really sweet of you to say. And it is our goal.
We've literally said this, like, cool, we're like, we want being a climate justice advocate to be the coolest thing it could be.
It is so cool.
If it's cool, then it'll trend. If it's trending, then people will just do it.
Yeah.
You know, so we gotta make it look cool.
Thank you for listening to the Green Rapids Podcast. I'm Saida. Shout out to Erica and Nancy.
Peace.
See ya.